And welcome everyone. This is Galen Tome, and we are going to be talking about the passives that are coming out for Metalstorm for all of the aircraft. These are going to be dropping tomorrow, so they are not quite in the game at time of recording. But that said, they are fully released in terms of how much, what the statistics are, how powerful they are, what they do, all of that information. It's now on the Metalstorm wiki, and it's also been released as a graphic by Starform. So we're going to be going through each of the passives for each of the jets, and we're going to be ranking them here based on just how powerful they are in comparison to each other, and talking a little bit about how worth it is to upgrade one of these passives over the others. The price for upgrading them is rather a sizable amount of silver, so a lot of people are going to be looking to figure out which jets are going to benefit the most from having their passive unlocked, which jets are just going to be it's kind of nice, um, but it's going to be really more important than ever to be able to focus your resources into the areas that give you the most benefit. If you have a particular plane that you just love playing and that's the one you spend all your resources upgrading, pretty much any of these, if that's your plane, go for it. Get the passive, upgrade it. All of these will enhance your plane in some way or another. And if that's the plane you love the most and you enjoy the most, then invest in it and get the passive unlocked. But if you just want to get the most amount for your silver as you're leveling up and as you're investing in different planes, this should hopefully give you a starting point to kind of gauge things. All of this obviously is my opinion. Reasonable minds may differ, and I have not flown these in game at the various upgrade levels yet. I've only tried these at the maximum upgrade level, level 20, with mods unlocked and the passives maxed out during the test server. So with that said, let's get started here. We're going to take a look. We're going to be going in the order of hangar level. So if you have a particular plane you want to find out more about and hear what I have to say about it, feel free to skip around the video to find the section that you're looking for. I will try and put some chapters in the description to help you find it according to hangar tier. We're going to be switching back and forth to the descriptions of the passives and then back to these categories to place the plane where I think they should go in terms of that passive. So quickly, let's go. Before we do that, let's get into the categories I've set up here. So we're talking about game-altering passives. This is the top tier. These are passives that are so strong that they alter how not only you but everyone else in the game has to play. These are things that benefit not just your team, not just you but your team, or are so strong on a particular plane that everyone else has to play around it, or you can basically lean into it as a team and to use it to your advantage that way. Next up, we have must-have for the plane. These are passives that really help this particular plane overcome a shortcoming or enhance a strength to the point where you're missing out on the complete experience of the plane if you don't have it. So they'll definitely be high priorities to unlock, but but they won't necessarily be game breaking. You don't have to go out of your way to play that plane in order to have access to that passive, so that passive is in play in the game. It's just if you are playing that plane, you really do want that passive. Next up, we have great to have. These are passives that are just all around very good for the plane. They enhance it, they give it something useful, or they cover up a weakness or such. They're really doing their job well. Next up, we have nice to have. Nice to have is going to be passives that are like I said, are nice to have. So they'll give you something useful, but not necessarily you're not missing out or going to lose against people if you don't have it unlocked at all. Um, it just it's just a little bit of extra to help you in your fights, and sometimes it might have a deciding effect in some engagements or another. Near the bottom, we have hardly noticeable. These ones are like they're not going to hurt you, but there's very few times where these passes will make a deciding difference in your games. It'll just be slightly less annoying of having to work around your weaknesses, or you'll have a little bit more oomph when you're flying in one particular area or another. And then we have at the very bottom, actually terrible. Actually terrible traits. There's not going to be more than one or two of these on the list, but these are ones that are so bad that they are almost a nerf for the plane. Like, I would actually avoid unlocking them if you can. Um, that may change a little bit. Like, they might be closer to the hardly noticeable um, range once we've had a better chance to test them out, but they're still going to end up at the bottom of this list. So, actually terrible is going to be a short portion of the list, but it does exist, so it's on the list there. So, without further ado, let's get into the first plane. So we're going to take a look at the passives list. Let me transition here. So here's the graphic that Starform released, and it is mostly in order of hangar level, so we're going to be keeping to that as much as we can. Up first, we have the F5 Tiger with anti-radar flares. While you have a flare in the air, damage from radar-guided missiles is reduced by up to 50%. Now, let's talk a little bit about its upgrade levels. At level 1, it is 10%. Let's talk about why the F5 has this passive. One of the vulnerabilities of flying a light fighter in general is that your health pool is very low, to the point where an equally leveled interceptor, so if you're flying level 1 and they're flying level 1 or 20 and 20, will be able to kill you with one properly landed interceptor missile, like long-range missile. Base damage on those is 120. Base health for the the F5, I said, is 100. So there's even a bit of a wiggle room. There's a bit of overkill there. So you can take, like, you have to evade all the missiles in order to stay alive if you're facing an interceptor. If you take a single one, you'll simply die. What this is designed to do is, if you are hitting your flare and you still take part of that missile hit or the full missile hit, you will no longer die in a single hit. Which is great. Like, if you can time it right and you're going to take the hit anyways, it does help. That said, it only is in effect while the flares are active. Flares are active for, I believe it's 1.5 seconds. During that time, you're usually also evading the missiles that are coming in. So it may require flying differently in order to make proper use of this. You use it as kind of a brace for impact style effect to reduce the impact of a missile as opposed to fully evading it. Might be useful for times where you are caught in the open, or you don't have the opportunity to turn and evade, or you're stalled out, or things like that. So it gives you options. It gives you options. So 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50% are your various levels. Let's go back to our tier list, and let's see where we want to put the F5. So I can tell you right now, it's not going to be game altering. It's not a must-have for the plane. It already is able to evade most missiles, and if you are flying the F5 the way it's supposed to be flown, you are staying by cover. You're not exposing yourself to long-range interceptor missiles for most of your fights. That said, it's still very helpful, but it's going to require flying differently in order to make proper use of. I'm going to put it in nice to have. This definitely improves your chances in fights, but if you are flaring when missiles are hitting you as opposed to before they hit you in order to evade them, you're probably flaring wrong or you're caught in a really bad position. This will help cover up when you're in a really bad position, but it's helping cover up a weakness, but the better you fly, the less you'll be able to make good use of it. So it may even help with its head-on capabilities. This could go up to great to have, depending on how well it performs. But we're going to put this in nice to have for now. Let's transition back. Let's take a look at the F100 Super Saber. Those of you who have either seen my content or known me a bit, F100 Super Saber is my favorite plane in the game. Um, this this one saw a lot stronger version when it was initially tested. I'm kind of sad we didn't see the stronger version stick around. But let's take a look at what we did get. We got Kill Chain. When you get a kill, the nearest enemy to you is marked for up to 10 seconds, and you then deal up to 25% increased damage towards the marked target. I'm a little disappointed that the initial level for this is only 2 seconds. Um, and 5% increased damage. Like, that's a little on the low side. I was hoping for a bit more. So even 10 seconds is like it's useful, but it's not guaranteed you'll be able to have enough time to maneuver your plane and get a bead on this person on the marked target and start dealing damage to them and kill them. 10 seconds is a narrow window to do that. Um, I would I would say that the usefulness of kill chain at level 1 is being able to see nearby enemies if they're going behind cover or they're behind cover and be able to spot where you should be going next. Or if there are like multiple enemies lined up right in front of you, you can go from one and then get a bit of extra damage on the second one. But outside of those two situations, you're going to need to level this up to like 4 or 5 before it really starts being able to be consistently used. So that said, once it is able to be consistently used, I do think it'll be helpful because the F100 has a lot of damage output, and it, being able to get a damage boost against a marked target that won't be able to break line of sight because you'll be able to see where it's going, it is very useful. So, like, this is going to really lean into if you're competent with your F100 Super Saber. Let's go and put this in the list. I am actually going to put this in the great to have. I would say the Super Saber still performs just great with its default toolkit, but if you have this, it really does enhance its strengths. Um, so yeah, I would say great to have is a good spot to have this. Next, we are going to the Mirage Mark III Kinetic Boost. Gain bonuses to cannon and missile speed the faster you're flying. Cannon speed increases up to an additional maximum of 400 meters per second, and missile speed is increased up to an additional 400 meters per second. This one lets the M.III do its like light fighter boom and zoom style more effectively. It actually is a lot more difficult to evade the guns and missiles of an M.III when it's got this fully leveled up, especially because you're utilizing that top speed. It synergizes well with its rocket booster, so you can like hit a rocket booster, instantly get to really high speed, and nail someone with really high speed missiles and guns. Um, so I do think it is a very well suited passive. Again, at the initial level, plus 80 meters per second is not a lot. So it's not going to be very noticeable until you start leveling it past I would say rank 3 or 4, you're going to start noticing it more, and you'll be able to lean into it. And at rank 5, it should be strong enough that you can actually start incorporating it more reliably into your gameplay and have it really pay off. So let's go and place that. We're going to put the Mirage M.III at max level. I would call it great to have. I think it helps give the M.III something special beyond just its speed. It's able to kind of weaponize its speed in that way. I think it still performs just fine because the actual damage that your guns and missiles are doing is the same, but you're able to lane them a bit quicker and a little bit easier in certain circumstances when you're going at high speed. So, let's put it there, and we're going to go back to our list again. Let's go to the A6 Intruder. Burst Afterburner. For the first 8 seconds of your afterburner, the first 8 seconds of your afterburner have a increased top speed up to 15% and a up to 100% acceleration bonus. The cooldown for which is 20 seconds. So I've tested this out. The acceleration bonus is definitely nice. Even a 20% acceleration bonus is going to help you at the beginning of a match, or if you're starting to get speed back up after a turn fight, things like that. So I do think this is actually a good one to unlock, even at level 1 or 2 for the rank of the passive. And having it at rank 5 is quite nice because that acceleration really helps the plane maneuver better and control its speed better, because changing its speed back up after slowing down is one of the weaknesses of the plane. That said, I wouldn't call it like a must-have for the plane. I'm not even sure if I would call it great to have. I think it's just nice to have. We're going to put it at the top of nice to have for now, because it's giving it a bit more zip. But honestly, I think you actually get more out of a Daredevil mod. Or a thrust booster mod. A thrust booster would give it more than this. This one is tough to call, though, in terms of how much of an impact it's going to have. So it's somewhere between nice to have and great to have. But that's the A6. Next we have the MiG-21 Fishbed. Hitting an enemy, suppressing guns, hitting an enemy with cannons triggers their flare cooldown. The cooldown for which is as low as 11 seconds. So, a little bit of mechanics on how this works. This means that standard flares and disruptive flares won't be able to be used for 5 seconds. When you tag someone with your guns. Faster flares, on the other hand, will only be locked out for to less than 2 seconds. It's pretty quick. So it's not a set duration. It's the cooldown of your flares. So if you have a shorter cooldown for your flares, this effect will have less of an effect. Also, it does interact with the panic flares on the Su-22 that we'll get to later, where if you are lower HP, you have no cooldown for your flares. You'll be able to... I think what it does is it sets your flares to their default cooldown. So even though you don't have any cooldown normally, it will lock you out of your flares for like 2 to 5 seconds. I believe that's how that works. So it is a nice counter. It is a nice improvement for the fish bed. The cooldown of 31 seconds though, initially, is a little bit much. Um, I would hope for a little bit of a shorter cooldown at level 1. So here's hoping that part gets buffed. The mechanics though are quite useful. Let's go put the suppressing guns here. Um, this really does help address the consistency of landing your missiles with the MiG-21, especially at higher levels as well. Um, we're gonna put it in great to have. We're gonna put it somewhere around there. It's close to must have for the plane. I think the MiG-21 still performs fine. Don't quote me on that. Like the its kit doesn't rely on having suppressing guns. Um, so I wouldn't say it's must have for the plane, but it's like it's quite good to have. Like it really does improve its performance. So let's move to the next one. So let's talk about the A4 Skyhawk terrain confusion. When within 200 meters of terrain, enemy radar guided missiles have up to 50% reduced lock range against you. That starts at 10% reduced lock range and increases to 50%. This is almost like a pseudo stealth for the A4, which already has cool engines. One of the primary ways to counter short range aircraft like the A4 is to hit it from longer range with usually radar guided missiles, especially since it already has cool engines requiring infrared missiles to get closer to lock onto it. So this really gives the A4 a huge advantage in a lot of the engagements, and a lot of the engagements it's engaging in are going to be roughly within 200 meters of terrain. So if you can get used to flying by like slightly closer to terrain than maybe you're used to, you're going to be getting a lot of use out of this. Um, yeah, like the A4 performs fantastically. It's one of the strongest planes in the game right now. This will improve it even beyond that. Um, like I would say there is if you're upgrading your A4 past 12 and you're planning to use it and you want something good to like invest your silver into and such, getting and upgrading the trait for the A4 is a good choice. We're going to put this in the must-have for the plane. This this changes how the A4 can be. This I can't overstate how strong this is. Um, it's just incredible. So yeah, that's what I got to say about that. The A4 isn't bad without it. It's just so incredible with it that I would say it's must have. That's where I'm at with it. There's no take it or leave it. You got to take it. But let's move on. Um, let's go to the J-35 Draken. Need for speed. As you continue to fly straight, top speed increases by up to 20%, and your acceleration increases by up to 75%. This one, we're going to be doing a little bit of testing once we've got some people that have unlocked and trying to get some more specifics as to what they mean by as you continue to fly straight, like how long the delay is before it triggers and how long it takes for it to go up to that point, because it takes a few moments for it to fully charge. It does help, but it is very unforgiving for moving at all. Like by fly straight, they mean zero turning at all. So like if you're on a controller, you don't touch the movement thumbstick. If you're on glass, you do not touch your virtual joystick or cursor or tilt the phone or anything. If you're moving at all, it cancels the passive and resets it back to its, charge up time. So you'd have to charge it back up again. So you really have to be careful with where you're pointing. But it will help cross map in some circumstances. But it doesn't give a whole lot of room for course correction. So I'm hoping that gets changed where they give you a little bit of room where you can like drift your plane a little bit to side or whatever to course correct while you're still without losing it completely. Um, but yeah, the a top speed increase of 20% is not bad. Like let's yeah, it's rough to use at level 1. I would say level 3 is where you'd want to start using it if you're going to use it and invest in it. That's where you're going to start actually making use of it to the point where it's worth flying in an exactly straight line. Let's go place it here. J35 definitely could use a bit more. Um, I wouldn't even call it great to have. I'm going to say it's nice to have. Because it is so unforgiving in how you have to line up perfectly in order to use it, and how like its maximum effect is not game altering amount of speed. We're gonna put it in nice to have. Let's talk about the MiG-19 sneak attack. Oh boy, the plane that is at the top of the meta that is dominating with its massive amount of sustained and burst damage is getting a passive for more burst damage and more sustained damage. Like, sneak attack. When not detected by enemy radar, gain up to 50% increased cannon damage. The only saving grace for the rest of us is that it's not like we were surviving very long against the farmer to begin with. If it got guns on you, you're usually dead. That's like it's pretty hard to evade it to begin with. Also, you have to be fairly isolated to not be detected by enemy radar. Like this is for like when one person is coming over, like one opponent, and you're the MiG-19, and you're like basically waiting for them to come over, and you're swinging in behind them, and you don't have line of sight on anybody else, and nobody else has line of sight on you. Then you'll get your gun damage increase. If anybody else is looking at you and has line of sight, your gun damage increase isn't on. Now, there's no delay in when it turns on. So as soon as they lose sight of you, you'll get your gun damage increase so that you can use the narrow margins where that's happening and not happening to really to your advantage. But yeah, this is a lot of damage. It already has a lot of a lot of base damage, so increasing it by 1% as well is going to just skyrocket its damage. This is a very, very strong passive with situational use. So the better you are at map positioning and like controlling lines of sight and ambush tactics and things like that, the more you'll get out of this passive. So bear that in mind for if you're going to be investing in this for the MiG-19. MiG-19 is already incredibly powerful and does not need this in order to succeed. Let's go place it. I'm going to put it in great to have. It is very strong. Like, bear in mind, if you're facing someone who has this and they know how to use it, it's going to feel very unfair. Like, you're just going to get blown up. It's incredibly strong. Um, but if you're getting ambushed by a MiG-19 in a situation where they don't have a radar cone pointed at them, you're already in trouble. Like, so this is just going to narrow that gap where the tiny hope that existed before is kind of evaporating here. Um, but if you want to invest in a trait that alters like the landscape of the game, where like it elevates something higher than it was, or um, like gives you a consistent advantage, this one doesn't quite measure up to that because it's a little bit more situational and because the plane already does the job that this trait gives it, just slightly faster. So I put it in great to have. It's very strong. Um, so like, don't let that fool you. It's extremely strong to the point where like I think it should have gotten a different passive or been nerfed or something. Um, but this is what we have for now. So and I think it's going to be great to have, but it's not a requirement and it doesn't necessarily alter the game in terms of how you're playing or how they're playing. Let's talk about the Su-22 fitter though. Panic flares. When at or below up to 50% health, your flares have no cooldown. This is going to be particularly good at 16 to 20 when you have access to disruptive flares. You're really going to want to have it at probably rank 3 or higher because 20% or 10% health is very low HP to be able to start using this. It means that if you just use your flares and you start dying, you can pop them again. So in that sense, if you're quick about it, even at rank 1, it does start being useful. But if you've got it where you're at 50% health, oftentimes engagements, you'll fight one person and you'll limp away with like, a third or more of your health still. Your passive is now ready to go for your next engagement against the next plane that's coming, or the next plane that you pick a fight with. So that's where having it at rank 5 really benefits you. Disruptive flares means that you can mess with enemy gun leads and reticles and such, and mess with missile tracking even more. So like, yeah, just the only danger of using the fitter's passive like this, the panic flares, is that you will run through your flares very quickly. So if you decide to use this passive, bear in mind you're going to want to finish that engagement with the flares you have and immediately transition to going and getting more. And because you're only using it in situations where you are already lower on health, that's going to be a full reload cycle where you go and get rearm, and then you also get healed up, like repair for your aircraft. So that's your situation where you're going to be using it the most. You can also try not to just spam it, but just like use it very strategically, exactly when you're going to need it. Kind of giving yourself a pseudo faster flares instead of just spamming them. You can time them so that they're still evading missiles and such, depending on if you're fighting guns or missiles or rockets or what have you. Let's talk about where we're going to put this. So the Su-22, there's a lot to love about this plane. I think this really elevates it. This gives us something special. This makes it incredibly difficult to pin down and fight, especially when it's equipped with disruptive flares. Even faster flares would work, but faster flares kind of does a similar job already. And even if you don't have disruptive flares, and you're just using like Daredevil Shriek armor or something, this will give you pseudo faster flares essentially. So I do think it is a must-have for the plane. If you're going to be investing in playing the Su-22 and you have the opportunity to get the passive, this is still a really good one to have because it's really going to elevate the gameplay. You're going to want to be checking on your scoreboard at the start of a match. If you see a Su-22, check to see if they have their passive unlocked, because you're going to need to alter how you fire missiles on them, and even engage them with guns if they've got disruptives. If they've got that passive, you got to keep in mind, your aim assist is going to be disrupted, and um, fire and forget missiles are not going to retrack, and things like that, like manual missiles, all that stuff. Like it's a big deal. So I would say it's almost as game altering as the A4, but it's specific to fighting the Su-22. So that's why we're keeping it in the must-have for the playing category. Let's bring up the next one, the F-106 Delta Dart. As the passive is called Fast and Furious. As your speed increases, your missiles gain up to a 35% lock range bonus, plus a small speed bonus. It doesn't specify how fast the speed bonus is. Let's talk about what that actual ranging bonus looks like. Give me one moment to open some stats here. Weapons, missiles, 106. Okay, so the range is 7 kilometers by default, or 4.3 miles if you're looking at Imperial. So a 35% increase it would bring it up to 9.5 kilometers or so, 9.45. So 9 kilometers and 450 meters is your exact range increase at maximum mod and maximum speed at which the mod is giving you the benefit, because it does slowly increase as you increase your speed. It's nice, but here's the problem with it. In order to use the increased range, you need to be going fast, which means you are rapidly approaching the target that you're targeting with your max range. You can't just sit at that longer range and fire those missiles. And because these are not fire and forget missiles, the F-106 is equipped with manual radar guided missiles. You're going to have to continue looking at your target and keeping them in your lock circle. The turn rate on the 106 missiles is not great. It's probably one of the weakest turn rates. So using them at longer ranges like this is not the ideal situation for the 106. Like it doesn't perform the best in those longer range engagements. So I feel like Fast and Furious for the Delta Dart is helping the Delta Dart in situations that it doesn't want to be in. Like it's leaning into a weakness as opposed to compensating for a weakness. Increasing the speed of the missile is nice. It will mean that it arrives in a similar amount of time, but it also means that it will be more difficult for the missile to turn and stay on target. It's going to require some experimentation to figure out exactly where it's going to land, but like it's not going to harm the 106, and it will be noticeable. But there's going to be a lot of engagements because that you're using the F-106, because a lot of the times you're not going to be flying at high speeds. You're going to be flying closer to your ideal turning speed, which is basically your passive is off while you're at ideal turning speed. So there's going to be a lot of times where you're simply not going to be benefiting from this. So let's look at where we're going to put this. Fast and Furious for the 106, I'm going to put firmly in nice to have. I'm not necessarily going to order these in the categories in any particular order. I'm just going to place them in the categories. Maybe we'll reorder them, but I think we're going to leave them as is. But let's take a look at the next one here, the GR3 Jaguar, Momentum Shift. While over 50% HP, gain up to 25% increased damage. While under 50% HP, gain up to 10% increased turn rate. This one is quite nice, actually. The Jaguar, what it has is pretty good precision with its rockets when combined with guns, because you can use the gun lead aim assist at most angles on enemy planes, and you can fire your rockets along with them, and the rockets will land. So, but the Jaguar's damage output has been nerfed several times. The gun damage is okay, but it's not fantastic, and the rocket damage is okay, but it's not fantastic. Having the extra, well, at max rank, 25% increased damage when you're starting an engagement is fantastic. It allows it to be actually lethal when it wants to be. When you're actually flying the plane, the way it's supposed to be flown, and you're engaging targets, and you're jousting, or you're finding targets that are flying past you and such, and you're getting some damage on them on the pass. That 25% increased damage allows you to start turning those into kills instead of assists. It's a huge deal. Also, it's not just gun damage, it's not just rocket damage. That means also when you're engaging with missiles at the beginning of an engagement and you're still at full health, your missiles are doing up to 25% increased damage. This is a big deal. And while you're under 50% HP, getting a 10% increased turn rate is also fantastic. Daredevil is essential for this plane if you're flying this at higher levels, because it loses a lot of speed in its turns, and it doesn't have great turns to begin with. And it has a very high ideal turn speed, which means it's got to keep its speed up if it wants to keep its turn up. Giving it extra turn rate after it's engaged something and is trying to get back into away from the fight again, or just into the engagement or what have you, is fantastic. This gives stats that the Jaguar wants and needs in exactly the situations that you're going to want and need them. It's almost the opposite of the 106, where it's giving stats where you don't want them. This is fantastic. So I will absolutely call this. Let's put this back to the tier list here. Let's put the Jaguar firmly in the must-have for the plane. This is a fantastically designed passive. This is what I would love all the passives to be, is to really help hone the plane into what it should be. But let's move on, because we got a lot of planes to cover. Next up is the Flogger. Outrun damage. When your wings are swept back, gain missile damage resistance based on speed, up to a maximum of 25% damage resistance. This is another plane that is a light fighter, so you're going to be one shot by most interceptor missiles. Let me double check a particular stat here. Aircraft. Roll. Yeah, so it's got 115 base HP. So it is just shy of being able to survive an interceptor missile at minimum level, or like at equal levels. So either 1 and 1 and 20 and 20. There's a little bit of mixing and matching in the in-between levels, because it's not exactly evenly spaced. But let's say at level 20, even rank 1, let's see, 40 minus 5%. Yeah, so that's 228. Yeah, so at level 20, if you just have rank 1 of outrun damage, and you have it fully activated, where you're going the speed where it's giving you all of the damage resistance. Um, you can take a full hit from an interceptor missile, and it will leave you with like 2 or 3 health, as opposed to simply dying in one hit. So like this does make a difference. Um, let's see what that means for an interceptor missile at max rank, minus 25%. So that's taking 60 damage off of a max rank interceptor missile. So that brings it to 180. So yeah, you're still only taking one, but you're going to be a little bit healthier if you're maxing this out. And this will help more with lower damage missiles as well, because this is missile damage resistance. So this works against any missile type, whether they be radar or infrared or any of the guidance ones, or heck, even the MiG-19 missiles will count. Don't necessarily quote me on that because I have not actually tested that, but it should count. But I also know that they are sometimes coded as rockets, so we'll have to double check to make sure that that got coded correctly. But outside of that, this will be good, honestly quite nice. This won't help as much for like dogfight engagements and ambushes and such for the flogger. What this is for is it's supposed to allow the flogger to engage in anti-interceptor and anti-high altitude engagements, where it's using its wing back configuration to climb and to approach enemies, use its medium missiles, use its close range missiles and such, use its flare burst ability to really gap close on targets that want to stay away from it and just take them out that way. And so keeping your wings back and giving you extra damage resistance allows you that much more, um, staying power in those engagements. So that is what it's aimed at. So if you lean into using the MiG-23 like that, or you want to use it like that, this is great for that. In fact, if you're just using it for that, I would say it's must have. If you're occasionally using it for that, but you're mainly using it as like an interceptor or like as an ambush fighter type thing, sorry, not interceptor, as a light fighter and as an ambush fighter, trying to use those guns on closer range targets and staying close to terrain, this is less useful. This is more, then you're more likely to use it if you get targeted while you're on your way to like a control point in air superiority, for instance. It'll help you for there as well. And it's speed, not altitudes. You don't have to be high up. Just being high up does help as well because it does have that cruising altitude trait to help give it more speed. But again, only while it's got its wings back. So we're going to put it in great to have. And it's going to depend a little bit on how you use your plane, as to how worth it is and how useful it is. So bear that in mind. Let's talk about the Phantom. Let's take a quick drink before we continue talking about the Phantom. So, second wind, your aircraft will slowly recover health back up to a maximum of 45% HP, starting after 1.5 seconds after last damage taken. Your HP recovers at up to 5% health per second. This is fantastic. This one is one of the handful of traits that I've considered making a separate tier list for passives at level 1 compared to passives at level 5, because this is the only thing that scales for this is how quickly you get your health back. This is a fantastic trait. It synergizes well with its stress turning, because you can use your stress turning and then it will heal you back up even if you've gone below the threshold. Keeping yourself at a 45% HP threshold means you basically will never run out of stress turning. You might have to let go of stress turning briefly for it to like once you go all the way down to like 1 HP or whenever it turns off, let go, then let it start regenerating your HP, and then you can use it again. At max rank, it will regenerate your HP faster than stress turning can take it away, up until when you hit that 45% HP threshold again. So this really helps the F4 be the like forever turning plane that it already was, but even more so. And it allows it to survive engagements and come out like and be able to like limp away or go into another one with extra health. Like always having almost half health is incredible. And the fact that the threshold stays at 45% and the only difference is just how quickly you get there is also incredible. This is, we're going to go and put this in the tier list right now. This is a must-have for the plane. This is like fantastic. Yeah, like rank it up a little bit if you can to help with how quickly it recovers. But having it recover at all and have it go to 45% threshold is just great even at level 1. I would say level 2 or even 3 will really help you though. I'm not sure what the exact drain rate is for stress turning. I'd have to go and either test it or check that. So I'm not sure at what rank it will let you overcome that. But at rank, I'd say probably at like rank 3 or 4, it'll start healing faster than you lose health when turning with stress turning. So bear that in mind. That's kind of your goal with that. But if you're looking to fly the F4 to its full capability, absolutely get this, at least at rank 1. Now let's go to the next on the list, the Mirage F1. We're making our way through here, guys. We're gonna make it. Evasion flares. When you defeat a missile without using flares, you gain a flare back and your flare cooldown is reset. Cooldown is as low as 4 seconds. This is fantastic. You can use terrain for this. You don't have to be out in open air and have it whiz past you. You can just like not flare, get terrain between you and the missile, and it counts. And you get a flare back. And especially when you're flying higher levels and you're using disruptive flares for things, for like especially closer range engagements, sometimes you can you find yourself running out of flares and you'll have to start using terrain and such. And being able to get back a flare because you're using terrain means that you're able to stay out there. Like you're either able to stay out there and just use your guns to engage people, or like safely get all the way back to your team or to health or and rearms and such. Like this is another one that provides a benefit in the situations where you are wanting to use your plane already. And it is a sizable benefit at that. So let's go ahead and place the F1. This is, oh man. I'm going to say even at rank 1, this is very much like the F4. Like we're going to put this as must-have for the plane. Because even though a 20-second cooldown is a little bit on the long side, getting this at least even once per life is like basically you're equipping your plane with an extra flare. You just have to be situational in how you acquire it, but like an extra flare in the middle of a fight, or during an engagement, or while you're away from rearm, is hugely beneficial. Like the difference between being at 1 flare and being at 0 flares is massive. So this is yeah, I would say must have for this plane. Let's talk about the Frogfoot. Su-25 Frogfoot Adrenaline Rush. When at or below 50% HP, top speed is increased by up to 30%. If a missile hit drops you below this threshold, your acceleration is also increased by up to 100%, and it is harder for missiles to hit you for 4 seconds. This one is, it's great. I didn't get a chance to really put this through its paces, and it's a little bit hard to test with bots. So I didn't get a good sense of like how impactful this is going to be with that last effect where it's harder to hit you with missiles. And bear in mind that even though you are getting a top speed increase and a acceleration increase, you aren't getting a turn rate increase. So if you're at your ideal turn speed and you're evading and you're trying to evade missiles, um, you're not going to get as much of a benefit from that. Now you will, um, it will let you get out of like slower turn rates or like if you're taking damage and you're trying to outrun something or get to cover or whatever. Adrenaline rush will definitely help you. Um, and yeah, having a just like if you were running from engagement after fighting and you've taken damage and you're below the 50% HP threshold, which doesn't change by the way. The 50% HP threshold where this activates is always 50% HP. Having any increase in top speed is a great thing. And usually, if you're taking hits to drop you below 50% health, you're usually taking it from missiles. Not necessarily like always, but like enough times that it is going to be consistently available. Having a big increase in acceleration is also going to be really nice. Um, yeah, I think there's no downside, and there's plenty of opportunities to use this, and it's really going to be helpful. And even if it's occasionally where missiles will miss you a little bit easier, um, I think what that does is it kind of shrinks the proximity fuses on on incoming missiles where they have to be closer before they'll detonate, and so like partial impacts and things like that, wherever are more likely, or they're more likely to whiz past you if you're evading mostly. And the 225 is a big plane, so reducing that even by a little bit can be very beneficial. So we're actually going to place this fairly highly. Um, mm, because they said that um, like the similar effect if it's harder to hit you with missiles for a certain amount of time while you're using Escape Artist with the F1. And it's not very often that that actually makes a difference. So it's mainly the speed and the top speed. It's either going in great to have or must have. We're going to put this in great to have because it really will be really nice, but it doesn't I don't think it changes the Su-25's job. I think it just makes it a little bit safer for you to do it. But that honestly may change. It might be must-have worthy, but that's going to require some testing and a bit of experience. So that's why this is a bit of a preview list. But let's go back to the list here. Let's talk about Pedal to the Metal, the JA37 Vegan trait. As you hold Afterburner, your fuel consumption reduces by up to 75% over 5 seconds. What that means is it takes 5 seconds for it to reach that amount, and it stays at that reduction amount for as long as you hold down the button. Thing is, the Vegan already has the ability uh, rapid refuel. So it's already got a mechanism to get fuel back and continue after burning. And it is, yeah, basically if you level this up, unlock it and level it up, you will never, and especially if you have rapid refuel, you can turn on your afterburners and keep them on for the entire match and never let them turn off, and you will never run out of fuel. If that sounds nice to you, grab it. Um, the Vegan does not need this. It does not need it to succeed. It does not need it to, cover up a massive weakness because it already has another mechanism to do that. That's even cheaper to get. But it is definitely nice to have. It definitely, makes it a more enjoyable experience to use. So let's go ahead and put this on here, and we're going to put this firmly in nice to have. Like, just never running out of fuel, it's great. But if you already have good fuel management and even like rank 1 of rapid refuel, you're not going to get as much benefit from it. You're just going to be able to lean into your afterburns a bit more, so you're going to be a bit zippier and such. But yeah, it's going to depend on how you fly it, how confident you are. Pilots with really good fuel management will benefit from this less than pilots with, say, on mobile, where they're used to turning on their afterburners and locking it on. It will allow it to just be a more enjoyable experience because they can just kind of leave it on and they can kind of focus on their flying and just tap the brakes every so often if they need to slow down. So that's where I would put it. I would put it nice to have. Um, it doesn't make the Vegan overpowered in any way. It's just, yeah, it's nice to have. Let's go back to the list here. The F-111 Aardvark. Shake it off. While your wings are swept forward, you won't take more than as low as 40% of your max HP in damage from a single radar-guided missile hit. So that's actually more specific than some of what we had tested originally. Uh, it's now specific to radar-guided missiles, which means that you can bypass this by using infrared missiles, such as ones on the Rafale, or, and we'll get to this later, like the MiG-31 or the F-14. But it will help it with longer range engagements at like those full interceptor range engagements. It will essentially allow it to take one extra interceptor missile to kill, which is a big deal when you're in interceptor sniper jousts, basically, where you're sniping back and forth with these long-range missiles. So, yeah, it's hard to say. Let's take a look at the list here. I don't know if I would put it in must-have for the plane. It definitely isn't great to have, though, because it is an evening mechanic to let you, like, because the 111 is one, like, the only plane with only long-range radar missiles, one of the two planes that doesn't have a gun. Like, it does one thing, and this lets it do that one thing a little bit more effectively, a little bit more safely. So I would say it's great to have. If you're going to be flying the F-111 and you are serious about making it good, this helps it actually be good in the field that it specializes in. So I would say it is great to have. It's I don't know if I would call it must have, but it's close. It's close to must have. But I think you could get by without it just by virtue of, like, if you're flying it at 16 and above, you're getting faster flares anyways. You're avoiding these missiles. So yeah, it's just, it's nice. It's great even. But it doesn't break the plane or yeah. It's really close to the must-haves. But yeah, let's move on. The Tornado ADV, evasion fuel. When you defeat a missile, fuel consumption rate is reduced by up to 50% for 5 seconds. You also gain up to 35% of your total fuel back. This is another nice one. The ADV is one of the best planes in the game right now, all around. So giving it anything more than what it currently has is probably already overkill. So they had to give it something, and it already has like pretty good speed retention, pretty good fuel consumption, like pretty good acceleration, just like so many good things across the board. Um, it didn't need this, but it's, yeah. Let's put it in the tier list. We're gonna put this in nice to have. Yeah, it is nice to have, but the only time where this is directly needed is if you are running out of fuel on the ADV, and the ADV still performs quite well even when basically out of fuel. So it's alleviating a very small weakness. So you're going to get a marginal increase in performance. So it is nice to have. If you really like the ADV, feel free to grab it at. Let's pull up in the actual. Here. Let's look at. So fuel consumption reduced by 7, 14, 20. I'd say rank 2. I would say if you're going to buy this, get it to at least rank 2 to really start seeing an actual useful outcome from that. Rank 3 maybe is a little bit better, but rank 2 especially. Rank 5, obviously, if you're going to be maxing this out. But, and you evade a lot of missiles to begin with the ADV. So you get to use this a lot. So it's not like you need to get all of the stats from it in a single activation. It's going to be activating on a fairly consistent basis. So yeah, I would say rank 2 is where you start really benefiting from it, and then above that is just more and more gravy. But let's move on to the Tomcat. F-14, the passive is called Death from Above. When flying at high altitudes, heat-seeking IR missile lock range is increased by up to 100%. Now, I'll be specific. I'm pretty sure when it says at high altitudes, it means 2 kilometers and above, like 2,000 meters altitude. Basically where your cruising altitude activates. That's where it's going to start activating. Having a heat-seeking missile lock range increase is fantastic. Let's pull open some stats. Sorry about that. There we go. So the infrared. Oh, this is the wrong one. Bear with me here. Infrared missile lock range is 2.8 kilometers or 1.7 miles. So at max range, you're doubling that. So that means 2.8 becomes 5.6 kilometers. That is almost the range of the MiG-31 infrared missiles, for comparison. Those are 6-kilometer range, and the Rafales are 7-kilometer. If I recall correctly, they should be, yeah. So, getting it to 5.6 kilometers is fantastic. It really helps allow the Tomcat to use the rest of its payload, the 4 infrared missiles, while it's actually doing its job as a interceptor. Actually able to use them as medium-range missiles, essentially. So, I would say this is fantastic. Now, that is at max rank. Lower than, say, rank 4. Let's see, what does 80% give us? So, 2.8 plus 80%. It brings you to 5 kilometers. So, like, 5 kilometers, you're still doing great. So, I would say rank 4 and above, you want to be getting this to really start maximizing how you can use it. But this is a great one to have. I think it really enhances what the F-14 is able to do. I think it makes it like almost twice as deadly. We're gonna put this this is a no-brainer right here, right now. It is a must-have for the plane. Like, it is just fantastic. So if you're an F-14 fan, I know plenty of you are out there, and you're thinking, is the passive really worth it? Will I be able to make use of it? Is this going to, make a difference? Should I really be investing silver? The answer is yes, absolutely. I think this really helps the F-14 actually join its counterpart, the interceptor counterparts, in the interceptor battles. It really helps it finally find its niche. It's no longer just a jack of all trades, master of none. It will actually be able to compete against the MiG-31 and the F-111, and heck, even the J-20, because you'll be able to start using infrareds at like over 5 kilometers away. You can start approaching it and tagging it with infrareds if you need to, instead of having to get way closer with your long-range radars. Um, yeah, it's absolutely must have. So this is fantastic news for F-14 fans everywhere. Just, make sure if you're facing one, beware of infrared missiles coming at you from raining down from above. Let's talk about the MiG-29 Fulcrum Ghost Protocol. When you get hit with a missile, disappear from enemy radar for 6 seconds and gain 20% increased top speed and 100% increased acceleration for up to 5 seconds. You are also immune to enemy missile locks for 3 seconds. This is fantastic. This really helps the Fulcrum be a menace in especially the medium range engagements that it is engaging in. The disappearing from radar is nice, and that being 6 seconds static across the board is great, and immune to missile locks for 3 seconds is also fantastic. The top speed and acceleration is very nice, but it's like icing on the cake. This is one of the ones that reaches like the majority of its usefulness and purpose at rank 1, and then just becomes nicer to use as you rank it up to 5, because getting that increase in speed and acceleration is going to be really nice to really crank up your dogfighting or your evasion or whatever you're doing with the MiG-29. Like most situations you find it in, if you're taking a missile hit, you're going to definitely make use of that acceleration and top speed. And having that for longer is going to be great. So definitely, like, if the MiG-29 is your gal, that's your plane, definitely still worth ranking up. But if you're looking for like best bang for your buck, and you want to be ranking up traits on a bunch of different abilities or a bunch of different planes, Ghost Protocol is great at rank 1 or even rank 2, because 2 seconds of burst of speed is still great. So yeah, rank 1 or rank 2, I would say invest in, even if you only sometimes fly the MiG-29. And if it is your main plane or one you really want to invest in or you want to max it out, it's still absolutely worth maxing out. So let's go ahead and put that out. Yeah, this is must have for the plane. This is fantastic. The MiG-29 isn't quite deadly enough to make it so that it is like uncounterable now that it can like not get hit by missiles for 3 seconds. So it's not quite in the game altering category, but it really elevates it up in terms of what it can do now. So it definitely is in the must-haves. Let's look at the next one here. The F-16 Fighting Falcon. Agile Disruption. When turning hard, enemy aim assist against you is reduced by up to 80%. This is great. This is like having semi-permanent disruptive flares. The main counter for this is just being really good with your like with manually aiming your guns. Um, if you are the F-16 and you're going to be using this, um, I would get it to rank 4 at least. I would try and get it to rank 4, if not rank 5 if you can. Um, and remember that it is just aim assist that's being reduced. This will have no effect against anyone who turns off their aim assist. Now, that is a very, very small percentage of players in Metalstorm because aim assist is enormously helpful in most situations. But players who have trained to not use aim assist, they'll still be able to shoot you through this. And you're still going to want to basically, like the image shows, be squirrely. You got to keep changing your direction, keep maneuvering around and such, so that your opponent is not going to be able to just move their gun cursor onto the lead reticle manually and start hitting you. You need to keep moving it around because so it becomes that much harder to do. But if you're doing that, the F-16 is going to be even better in dogfights than it already is. This is going to allow especially skilled F-16 players to start to kind of, like, I would even say, regain his position as the dogfighting king, even away from the MiG-19. The MiG-19 is going to be still a stronger plane overall, but in terms of like dogfighting capability, the F-16 is incredible. You're going to have to just you can use this to avoid a lot of enemy gunfire and use your disruptives to counter missiles more. So this is a fantastic one. It is must have. It is bordering on game altering. Like, this is here. My apologies here. We're gonna put that back, and we're gonna put that here in must have for the plane. It's bordering on game altering, but it's gonna be right here in the must have for the plane. If you fly the F-16 even a little bit, I would say get it to rank 2 or 3. If you fly it a decent amount, get it to rank 4 or 5. That's what I would advise for that. Now let's talk about the MiG-31. This is one of the ones I had not had a chance to actually test myself, but it's fairly self-explanatory. You're essentially regenerating a portion of the last missile hit damage you took, which essentially means that as long as you're alive, you can mitigate a missile's worth, like half a missile's worth of damage. Against interceptors, that's 120 damage at rank 20, like at level 20. It's good. It's not game breaking, but it's quite good. I would like, and the thing is, it's effective against missiles that aren't just the interceptor missiles. You're just not regenerating as much. So I would say that's great to have. It helps lean into its strengths, but it is not so game altering that you are going to start playing completely differently by having it. So I would say great to have. J-10 Firebird Combo Strike. When you hit an enemy with cannons, you gain up to 30% missile damage bonus against all enemies for 4 seconds. This is better than what it might seem. So the J-10's guns are actually one of the weaker ones in the game, probably the second weakest in the game, tied with MiG-21. MiG-21 got the ability to basically prevent enemies from flaring their missiles so that you're more likely to land your missiles. J-10 doesn't need that as much because its missiles are so like agile that they will generally be landing anyways. What you can do with Combo Strike is get into gun range of an enemy, tag them with guns, and essentially you're going to be able to kill them with 2 missiles rather than 3. Because they'll still flare 1 missile, but they'll have taken gun damage, so you can fire 1 more missile and they'll just die. They won't be limping away and you have to try and get close and get the guns and such. You can essentially, you could even take people out with a single missile. especially if you use your Phantom Missile to cause the enemy to flare. Follow up with one actual missile, and your gun damage will have done the rest because you'll have softened them up. That means, and the you can use your Phantom Missile like every 7 seconds. I think it's 10 seconds. Yeah, every 10 seconds you can use Phantom Missile. The J10 has to have missiles if it's going to be engaging in combat to be successful. So you can lean into this ability or this passive and start using less missiles per kill, meaning that you can stay out longer and kill more targets before you have to go back for ammo. This greatly increases like the amount of like kills you can get with the J10 if you're on a good roll and you're performing well with it. It just helps secure kills in general. Um, so yeah, I think this is one that is underrated, much like the Phantom Missile ability on the J10 is underrated, where people underestimate how good it can be. So we're going to put this. Hmm. See, because it's let's bring up the stats one more time. It's 6% at level 1. Goes to 12, 18, 24, and 30%. I'd say 12 or 18% is kind of the minimum where you're going to start to see a big difference in the number of missiles it takes to kill. So I'm debating between great to have and must have. Like, yeah. Because you know what? I'm going to put it in must have. I'm going to put it near the bottom of must have because it really helps compensate for one of the weaknesses of the plane, which is its ammo count for its missiles. So yeah, I would say it's a must have for the plane. Um, it's not as critical for the meta, where if you're a casual enjoyer of the J10 and you've got other stuff to upgrade that you want to upgrade for passives, it's okay to leave this one for later. If J10 is your jam and you love flying this one, this is a decent one to upgrade because it will help it perform better. So yeah, I would say must have for the plane, but it's not. Well, it's like at the lower end of that. Let's say let's talk about the Su-27 flanker. Unloaded agility. The fewer missiles you have left, the more more maneuverable your aircraft becomes. Gain a turn rate bonus of up to 15% with no missiles. This is great. This like the flanker is rather unwieldy normally, so being able to increase your turn rate like this is excellent. Um, and you're usually needing that more turn rate after you've expended a couple of missiles anyways. Get it to at least level 2, or like with 6, or level 3 with 9% increase. There's your kind of sweet spot for resources versus reward. If obviously if flanker is your main plane, upgrade it all the way. But if you're looking for like some investment in it, get it to rank 2 at least. I'd say, if not rank 3, um, because it's not going to hit that threshold of turn rate increase until it is out of missiles. So you're not going to see all of that benefit. So you're going to see part of that benefit. So you really do want at least 9% max, so you can start seeing like a 5 or 6% increase when you're partially out of missile, like out of most of your medium range missiles and such. So, but as far as the plane goes, I would say it's must have for the plane. It makes a massive difference to the plane. This lets it perform in like situations where it would simply die otherwise, or it simply gets outperformed otherwise. Like, it is a huge, huge game changer for this plane. So if you can, and you really want to invest in the 27, um, it makes a big difference. So I would get unloaded agility if you're looking to improve your Su-27. If you don't play the Su-27, or you only play it when you have to, basically, don't bother. Like, it's a lot of resources to invest to get. It'll make it nicer to use, but there's plenty of other ones that could use your attention. So we're going to put it near the bottom there of must-have for the plane. The F-18 Hornet. Marked target. Damaging an enemy marks them on your HUD. Gain a up to 20% missile damage bonus and 20% missile lock time bonus against your marked target. So, damaging an enemy stays until that enemy dies or you damage a different target. That includes using guns. So this is quite nice if you tag someone and they're gonna try and evade and you're gonna try and chase them or whatever. You're gonna be able to see them, even through terrain. Like, that's it. It's quite nice for that. So it does give it some extra tactical capabilities. So even at rank 1, it actually improves the plane because it gives you extra, little bit extra oomph, like extra damage, extra lock time. Like, the lock time on your medium range missiles is already pretty quick. Um, and you've got 4 medium and 2 close range infrareds. So you're usually using those anyways. So the lock time bonus isn't massive, but it's nice. And the damage, of course, is nice too. But like, the marking the target is probably the biggest mechanical advantage, aside for the actual stats. So this is one where if you are a casual enjoyer of the F-18, get this to at least rank 1, maybe 2, to get a little bit of extra stat bonus. But that's kind of where the sweet spot is for this, unless you're going all in on the 18, in which case absolutely get it to rank 5 and get that 20% bonus, because it is quite nice. It does help the F-18 be a little bit more lethal, which it definitely needs, because the gun is a little bit on the lighter damage side, because you got to be a bit closer with it. So yeah, I would say great to have. We're going to put this in great to have. I would say there's no reason not to unlock it at level 1 if you've got it a high enough level to get passives, but it's not as high a priority to max it as other ones. So that's why it's staying in great to have, because it doesn't make or break the plane. It just gives it a few more options. So I would put it there. Let's bring this to the JF-17 Thunder. Initial Barrage. The first 1.5 seconds of your cannon fire have a up to 50% cannon damage bonus. Cooldown 8 seconds. This is what it's been needing. This is going in. I know I said I wasn't going to be adjusting this, but like, it's going in must have. Like, this changes how the JF-17 flies. Changes how lethal it is. It is an incredible one. Get it to rank 3 or 4 at least if you're going to be trying to get good use out of the JF-17. Upgrade it to 3 or 4, if not 5 if you can. You will love it. It feels so good. It feels like you're flying an M2K with like light fighter capabilities. It's what it should have been all along. This lets the JF-17 become the plane it was always meant to be. So absolutely must have for this plane. A-10 Thunderbolt. Proximity flares. Your flares now attract missiles fired at nearby allies. Area of effect, up to 700 meters. This is okay. It's pretty good. It's a little bit more difficult to use on purpose with a team because you have to be fairly coordinated and you have to be pretty close and you have to be close enough to disrupt missiles going for them, and you have to know that missiles are going for them because if they are locked onto someone else besides you, you are not getting an incoming missile alert. The biggest situation I could see where you're making use of this, the most use of this, is against hunter missiles, against a close knit team where you're flying close together. Because if they can't lock you, they'll lock somebody else. And if you're flying together, then it won't lock anybody there, or it'll lock someone way off in the distance or way off to the side. So, close range engagements and hunter missiles are going to be your biggest and easiest place to use this. Uh, the level scaling between 500 and 700 meters is not massive. Like 700 is much more forgiving for sure, but 500 you're getting close anyways, so you might as well you can still make use of it, and it doesn't make it more effective. It just you have a narrower margin for where you have to be in order to use it. So I would say this is a great pickup for the A10 because it gives it a little bit more utility, especially at level 1. You can max it if you like. I would recommend leveling it to 1, maybe 2, and trying it out for a bit, seeing if you get good use out of it during games, and if you're able to, really lean into it, and if you are, and you want to give yourself a little more room to use it a little more consistently, then level it to 4 or 5. But I would hold off on that. I would do rank 1 or 2 to test it out, and see how you like it first before committing to leveling it higher. So we're going to put this firmly in nice to have. Put there. Because yeah, it's certainly a unique mechanic, and it can do some really cool things, but it's very situational as to when you can use it. So let's go to the next one. Mirage 2000, Gunslinger Flares. When you get a kill with cannons, you gain a flare back. The cooldown goes from 12 seconds all the way down to 4 seconds. This is fantastic. For the M2K, that only comes equipped with 2 flares. Especially when you're getting, and with the gun that it has, is one of the strongest guns in the game. This is a fantastic passive. And the fact that it gives you the full effect and only has a shorter cooldown in between uses, and has a fairly short cooldown even at rank 1, means that it is fantastic even at rank 1. I would say rank 2 is a good sweet spot for it because 10 seconds is a fairly short amount of time. 12 might be the difference between life and death, whatever, where you're starting to engage again. But even at rank 1, if you have an M2K above level 12, grab it at least at rank 1. It's worth the silver. We're going to put this at must-have for the plane. We're going to put it there. Yeah, we're going to put it there. Because it allows you to run disruptive flares on it. And if you win a gunfight engagement with it and you use a disruptive flare in it, you'll gain your disruptive back, and you're essentially running then a 3-flare plane instead of a 2-flare plane. It is so good. It is it is a massive weakness that the M2K is saddled with, in exchange for its its ability and its guns and such. And this helps mitigate exactly that. So it's an incredible passive. Let's do the F-15 Eagle. A lot of people really like the plane in real life, and it's been a little bit lackluster in the Metalstorm for quite a long time, but it is getting the undefeated passive. When you take a hit that should have killed you, you are left with 1 HP instead. This does not apply when you are already at 1 HP, and it has a cooldown of as low as 20 seconds. And at rank 1, it is 60 seconds. This is a great passive. This essentially allows the F-15 to take 1 extra missile to kill it. This is going to be really handy in those medium range engagements. If you are taking gun damage, it will rip right past that. Like, you're not going to be able to proc undefeated. There's no amount of time it keeps you at 1 HP. It is for individual hits. So if you're taking sustained damage from something like rockets or guns, you're toast. Like, if you get into close range combat and you're getting into gun range and you're getting into a gunfight and someone's shredding you with guns, this isn't going to help you. But it will help you with missile engagements. I would say rank 3 or 4. It starts getting more consistent to be able to use multiple times per life. I believe, and I'm not positive on this, but it should reset on death. So if you take this missile hit, whatever, and live a bit longer and get a kill or whatever, and then you die before it refreshes and such, or you just get gun shredded and you come back in, you should be able to use it again. So that's why it's less important to level it all the way up to get it down to 20 seconds. Because if you're dying in your engagement still, but you're just getting more out of your each life because of the passive, you'll get it again anyways. Basically, if you die before 20 seconds after using it, you didn't need to upgrade it, is what I'm saying. So definitely get it at rank 1, even if you only casually use the F-15, because you will find it useful. If you really love the F-15, absolutely max it out. I think at 20-second cooldown, if you're consistent about, like, after your engagement and you're limping away and you go back for health and you go back and rearm and then you go back and engage again, around the 20-second mark is when you're going to start finishing that process and getting back into an engagement. So you're going to be able to use it again. You'll just have to keep an eye on the indicator on your HUD to make sure that it is ready before you're doing those engagements, so that you're not going to, like, miss your timing by a second and go, oh, I died, I didn't notice. So make sure you're keeping an eye on your HUD, but at max rank, you can use it multiple times in a life. Maybe 30 seconds if you're timing it right, whatever, if you wait between engagements and such, or you're careful or whatever, you'll be able to use it 2 times in a life. 40 or 50 seconds, most of the time, you're not going to be able to use it twice in life. You're gonna die in that time. That's just how the game goes. So that's where the sweet spot would be. I would say, like, at least rank 3 or higher, probably like rank 4 or higher if you're planning to use it multiple times per life. If not, like, you might occasionally be able to use it multiple times per life, but you're gonna want, like, at least rank 1, because you can use it each life then, and it's fantastic for that. So we're actually going to put this must-have for the plane because it gives the F-15 a drastic improvement in the types of engagements it does. Taking an extra missile is a huge deal. So we're going to go, and it might be somewhere in the range of great to have, but, like, really, it's a must-have at rank 1, and nice to have or great to have upgraded to level 5. We're getting closer to the end here. I'm going to try not to lose my voice. But the Su-22 Strike Flanker is getting a passive called Inescapable. Hitting a target with a missile gives you up to 250 meter cannon lead reticle range bonus and a up to 50% missile lock range bonus against that target. This is nice. So the Strike Flanker is equipped with 4 medium range radar fire and forget missiles, the green ones. and for infrared missiles. This will increase your lock range against targets you have hit with your radar missiles with your infrared missiles. So it'll allow you to follow up with your infrared missiles at longer engagement ranges. That's, I think, where you're going to start really seeing its usefulness. Um, Cannon lead radical range bonus is nice, but like 250 meters is not tons. Like that's a marginal increase. Like here, let me let's look up the guns. Su-30. The gun range on this is 1.1 kilometers. So you're going to be going to like just shy of 1.3 kilometers. Like that's the difference for the reticle range. And your ideal range isn't going to change. So that means you're not dealing your full damage at that range either. You're just going to be landing more of the bullets, so it's going to feel like more damage, which is good because it will be practically more damage. But so it'll help in your gun engagements a bit when they're like right on the edge of that kind of 1 kilometer range ish, and they're starting to get out of range of your guns. You'll be able to keep your guns on them a little bit longer. That's why it's called inescapable. But I think your biggest increase is going to be that missile lock range bonus. Um, the heat seekers have a 2.8 kilometer range. Getting a 50% increase on that. It brings it to 4.2 kilometers on infrareds. So like that's where like if they're starting to get away or whatever, and you tag them with a missile of any kind, radar or infrared or whatever, you can follow up at like practically medium ranges with infrareds. Like this does give it more capabilities. So I would say, yeah, rank 3, maybe like 4 or 5 really is where it starts to really be a lot more helpful. Um, like the Su-30 it's still lacking in a lot of ways, but this will help it be a little bit more consistent with the ways it doesn't perform terribly. We're going to put it in great to have. This does help it be more deadly in ways that matter. Um, you're going to want it higher rank for it to really start making that impact, though. So I would say rank 3 is kind of your minimum of where you want to be for inescapable to start really being impactful. Rank 4 or 5, it would be more suggested. If you really like the Su-30, definitely invest in its trait because it will make a difference. Really look for those infrared increased lock ranges because that's where you're gonna find a lot more capabilities. But let's go to the next one. The Su-33 Sea Flanker gets Overheat Override. When you reach your cannon's heat limit, you can continue firing 33% longer and get a up to 50% damage bonus, but the cooldown time will be 2.5 times longer than normal. Or sorry, 2 times longer than normal. I misspoke. So let's put some numbers on that. 2 times longer than normal means that instead of the 5-second cooldown it normally takes your guns to cool down, it will take 10 seconds. That is the same amount of time it takes the Mirage 2000 and the JF-17 to cool down their guns, for context. Like, that is a long time. So you're paying a lot tactically for that damage bonus. That said, getting a damage bonus on your guns to finish off targets is pretty nice. But you have to overheat your guns to get it. Let's take a look at the Sea Flankers guns, or rather, I'm going to take a look at the Sea Flanker guns and I'll kind of describe them here. But sorry, I didn't set that up ahead of time. The Overheat time is 4.6 seconds on the Sea Flanker guns. So you're gonna have to get it. You're gonna have to fire them for 4.5 seconds for it to get to that overheat bonus. Then you can fire it for 33% longer. So let's say 4.61 plus 33%. So you're going to be able to get an extra 1.5 seconds of gun time, bringing your total time to 6 seconds. So you've got basically 1.5 seconds of extra burst damage, and then you've got 10 seconds of waiting afterwards. So you're going to want that gun damage to really count. I would say rank 2 or 3 at least, because you're looking at what a finishing guns would usually give you. Essentially, what you're giving yourself is a pseudo finishing guns at the cost of overheat time. So use it cautiously. I do think with the damage bonus it's providing, it does, and the amount of time you get to fire your guns still, it is still worth it to use. So, but like I would not use it at rank 1. I would try and use it at like rank 2 or 3 ideally, and then 4 or 5 is much better. It will help you kind of finish off those fights that are a little bit more difficult, or you're on a attack plane, you're trying to finish them off, things like that. Because you do have medium armor piercing, so it's pretty good against attack planes anyways. This is going to be in the nice to have category. Yeah, we're gonna put this in great to have, but we're gonna put it lower down. We're gonna put it here because it does give it an extra damage output in situations where if you're firing your guns that long, you might need that extra damage output. So and it's not going to penalize you if you don't use it. So you do have a bit of control over when it's activating, which is actually quite nice. So let's talk about the other bad boy in the room, the F-18F Super Hornet. There's a typo there. It's a Super Hornet. It gets the trait called Bloodlust. Gain a up to 50% missile lock time bonus when locking onto damaged enemies. As far as I know, that means any enemy below 100% health. So like 99% and below. So increased missile lock time bonus is fantastic because that goes for your infrareds and for your radars. So that brings the 1.8 second lock time for your radars down to 0.9 seconds. So you're pumping those out like they're like those fast locking mediums as opposed to long locking radars. Yeah, and for your infrareds, they're down to 0.65 seconds. Like you're firing them like they're fish bed missiles. Like they are fast locking. So Bloodlust is fantastic. I think it really does elevate the Super Hornet into an actual useful category. It's able to really help follow up on targets that have taken damage from either you or other sources. Yeah, must have for the plane. Like it's fantastic. I would say, let's bring up the stats one more time. If you're going to be getting this and you want to really optimize where you're getting the best bang for your buck, at least rank 3. I would put it at least rank 3 where you're starting to really get a benefit for that missile lock time increase. 50% is fantastic. 30% already is very good. So try and get to rank 3 if you can, if you're planning to really make frequent use of the Super Hornet. If you enjoy the Super Hornet and you really want to bring it into its own, rank 3 is where you want to start really cranking it out there. But let's go move on here. We're getting closer to the end. The Su-34 fullback is getting something called contour flying. Gain up to 50% increased top speed and 25% increased acceleration when flying within 150 meters of the ground. Pay close attention here. It says ground, not terrain. That means if you're flying beside pillars or cliffs, those do not count. It has to be ground, like level ground. So that means like the top of a pillar would be fine. A mesa, water counts. So like if you're flying above the water, that will count. But you have to be flying very close to actual ground. Now, you do not need to have the bottom of your plane pointed at the ground. So you can fly inverted close to the ground, or be turning along or whatever, so you don't have to stay horizontal parallel to the ground. But you do have to be near actual ground. Also, you don't have to be above the ground. You can be beside or below it if you're within that range. So if you're flying beside a cliff, you're flying right beside the top of the cliff, and you're within 150 meters of the top of the cliff, but you're flying beside it, and that's the range you're at, it will still activate. Even if you're a little bit below it, if you're still within that 150 meters, it will still activate. The top speed and acceleration is nice. I would say the acceleration is the biggest advantage there because it already is at 25% at rank 1. 15% increased top speed is nice, but it is difficult to maintain for long periods. This one is going to be nice to have. Let's bring up the list here. This is going to be nice to have. It is difficult to actually make full use of. And the stats aren't fantastic. They're just nice. And I would even say rank 1 or 2, because you're getting 6% top speed then, is a nice sweet spot to level it. Unless the Su-34 is your main jet, then feel free to max it. But 1 or 2 is probably the sweet spot because you're getting that acceleration at least at its maximum value, and it's mainly just the top speed increase. And you're not breaking any speed records with the fullback anyways, so that's, I think, where you're getting the best bang for your buck. The Su-35 Super Flanker is getting auto countermeasures. If you have flares left when a missile hit should kill you, your aircraft automatically uses a flare and reduces the missile's damage by up to 75%. This one's tricky because if you are low enough health that, say you're at 10 health left, if you take a missile hit, even if this activates, you're not going to live because the missile had more than 75% of your remaining HP in terms of damage. So you have to have the damage reduction that it's providing overcome the full damage of the missile and leave you with health left over. At 75%, that's most missile. That's a lot of your engagements. Remember, it's going to be using that. 25%, it's only going to be occasionally where, if you would reduce the damage by 25%, you would have lived. That's what it's doing. Also, you need to have a flare still left in the bay, left in reserve for this to activate. If you are out of flares, this will not activate. So I would say if you're going to upgrade this, get it to rank 3, so at least you're getting 50% reduction. That's going to be a lot more consistent with making sure that it's going to save you from death. And just get in the habit of making sure you're flying with at least 1 or 2 flares left, because if it uses a flare to keep you alive, you're going to want 1 more to avoid the follow-up missile. And I believe it does put your flare on cooldown in order to do this as well. So you just be aware. I don't know if it'll activate if your flare is already on cooldown, so that requires a bit of testing. I'll try and put some like testing and errata things on the individual pages for these planes, and possibly collect it on the passives list on the wiki in the future as we're able to get information on this. Um, in terms of where it's going on the tier list, it does help the super flanker. It lets the super flanker in plenty of situations get a almost bastardized version of the F-15 passive. It might leave you with a little bit more HP, but it only activates in only sometimes, and um, it requires you to have a flare, and it uses a flare to do it. So I'm going to put this in great to have. Um, I wouldn't say it's a must-have, but it is great to have because it does really help the plane. Let's move on to the Rafale. Rafale F.III. Relentless Fire. Getting a cannon hit while at 70% or more of your heat limit allows you to continue firing for an additional up to 2 seconds. While this is active, aim assist is disabled. I believe the aim assist disable is only for the additional up to 2 seconds. So there's that. But I have not actually tested that enough to be able to say that authoritatively, but let's assume that's the case for the purposes of our tier list for now. And if it turns out it's not, I'll put some more information on the wiki about that as well and let people know. But your overheat time on the Rafale is 3.4 seconds. So it is a little bit on the short side, and being able to extend it by up to another 2 seconds brings it to 5.4 seconds instead of 3.4. Thing is, the Rafale is not primarily a gunfighter. It is a incredibly effective missile fighter with decent guns to follow up and finish off targets. The guns on the Rafale are already generally powerful enough to do that job. Also, disabling your own aim assist is not great. Like, this is a huge downside. It essentially means that extra time is, at least partially wasted because it's going to throw off your aim in most situations. Like, I would actually say this is actually terrible. This may slightly increase your like how much gun damage you can put out, but it will feel awful because it will be constantly throwing off your aim when you're trying to use it. Like, I honestly think this is probably the worst passive in the game right now. Yeah, let's talk about this. I'm tempted to put F-106 in hardly noticeable. We'll adjust after. We'll look over the list at the end here. Let's go through the rest. Let's talk about the Burkut. Su-47 Burkut. Radiant flares. While you have a flare in the air, damage from heat-seeking missiles is reduced by up to 50%. So, the Burkut passive forces it to basically lose control when it takes a missile hit while you are turning hard. Say about like 40% of your max turn rate or whatever. 40 to 50% of your max turn rate. If you're turning more than a little bit and you take a missile hit, you lose control for like a second or so. It's really inconvenient. So there's already a built-in mechanic to the Burkut where you're going to want to be calculating when you're going to take a missile hit and adjusting what you're doing in order to deal with that. Um, yeah, this is going to be one of the. It's going to be very similar to the F5. Let's go to the tier list here. Um, yeah, because it's specific to infrareds as well. It's going to be specifically for like shorter range engagements, unless it's facing a Rafale, and even then, like the good luck using it to its effect because you have to use it while the flares are in the air, which is only 1.5 seconds or shorter for faster flares. Like it's so specific. So like we're gonna stick this right over here with the F5. Like the way you play the Berkut, you should not be using this in the first place. And because it is limited to infrared missiles, it is even more limited in when you can use it. So yeah, it's nice to have, but like, and because the damage reduction also scale, we're gonna go look at this again. Damage reduction also scales with level. For this to be consistently useful in ways where you want to be using it, you want it as high a rank as possible for it to actually make a difference, which is a lot of investment for something that's helping you in an area where you shouldn't be using it in the first place. So yeah, you could adjust how you fly and really lean into it and use it as like a damage reduction thing. Your flares as a damage reduction instead of a actual avoiding mechanism. But you have to be make sure that you're going to take an infrared missile hit and not a radar missile hit. There's just so many ifs on this that it's difficult to recommend. It's not going to not help you, but the frequency of being able to be properly useful is very low compared to how much it's going to cost to actually invest in. So that is my opinion. That's without putting it to the test and using it a lot in a bunch of different matches. So that opinion may change in the future if we see like meta changing or Berkut behavior changing. We'll update that, but that's my initial impression and advice. Let's go to the Typhoon now. Typhoon. Um, the FGR4, not 3, 4, more typos. Tenacious. When your health is depleted, you are granted up to 100% temporary HP. That temporary HP begins to decay at a rate of 10% health per second until you reach a health pickup. Sorry, unless you reach a health pickup. This one's hard to say. So let me start off by saying people who have heard about this trait from this initial testing, it is not the immortal maker that it was when it first came out, because that had a completely different mechanic. What it does now is it essentially gives you streak armor on death that decays. So um, say you have 50 health left, and you take a missile that deals 100 damage. Um, your passive will activate, and you will get 100% of your max HP minus 50, because it will take the 50 that was left over that would have killed you and apply it to the temporary HP that you gain. So you will not get 100% of your temporary HP unless the missile that would have killed you would have only exactly killed you by 1 damage. So you're even at max rank. This is not giving you all of your health for, you know, it's not giving you a full 10 seconds of decay without taking any extra damage. It is nice. It will give you an extra couple, like up to a couple of seconds to finish engaging or fire an extra missile or get a kill or whatever. Like it makes the Typhoon a little bit more hardy to finish off before it can finish you off. So it will make it more resilient in fights. It will make it tougher to kill outright. But if you tag a Typhoon and you see that temp HP pop up, as long as they're not about to go and get an HP pickup, like you're far enough away from that, like you're more than like 5 or 6 seconds away from picking up a health HP, you can, instead of trying to finish them off, and they're not in danger of killing someone else, evade them for a few seconds and they'll just die. So there is counterplay to it, but it does give the Typhoon pilot a little bit of extra time to try and be lethal. It kind of gives it kind of a last stand effect. So if you think of it as a last stand, then yeah, it can be quite useful. So let's see about where we want to put this. At 33% HP, that's not a lot. Like, you'd almost overkill through that. Get it to at least rank 2 or rank 3. That way you're getting enough HP so that you can stay alive for a few seconds through the extra damage from missiles. Yeah, and obviously more is better, gives you more time, but I'd say at least rank 2 or 3, not rank 1, to really start seeing the proper benefits from it. But let's say the Typhoon is already a great plane, very balanced overall, so giving it an extra little bit of a last stand is really quite useful. We're going to put this in great to have. We're going to put it around here. Yeah, I think that's fine. Because it'll activate every time you take lethal damage, so it is quite nice. And if you are near health pickups, you can use it to kind of like chain through extra hits, but you got to be really quick on picking up those health pickups. And if you're doing it multiple times, that means planes are bearing down on you and they can finish you off. So, but now we're finally at the stealth planes. These are, I'll tell you right now, these are some of the game-breaking ones. These are nuts. Let's start with the F-35 Lightning. Satellite tracking. Acquiring a missile lock marks the target for you and allies unless they break line of sight with the sky. Maximum targets between 1 and 5. So you can, at max level, you can track up to an entire team. But that requires you to get within your 7.5 kilometer range of your medium missiles, finish locking a target, which is 1.8 seconds at default unless you have improved targeting, and then they will be marked. By marked, they do mean that you can see them, you can see them through terrain. And you can see where they are. You can't like lock and fire missiles on them through terrain, but you can see where they are, and it makes them much easier to track and kill. This will let the Lightning be able to like go up in like medium altitude, start locking some targets, and keep its stealth activated by not firing, and start tracking targets. That said, if any of those planes then fly through a cave or under an arch or whatever, it will cancel that effect. And then it'll have to relock it again. If you're locked onto a target and your target flies under an archway or a pipeline or whatever, and you stay locked onto the target, it will not reactivate satellite tracking until you lose the lock, look away from them and then relock the target to reapply it. I would have liked it if it just reapplied it right away, but you have to start a new lock if they go underneath something first. So bear that in mind. Max targets, 1 is a little bit low. I would say 2 or 3 is plenty. You're not going to probably get more than that in most situations. So I would say rank 2 or rank 3 is really the sweet spot for this. Let's put this in the list. We're going to put this in must-have. This is almost game-altering. I'm not sure how impactful it's going to be, but it's very good. Yeah, let's do that, and let's do that. Yeah, this is very, very good. It allows the F-35 to be a support type plane. It changes the battlefield. It's almost game altering. Um, let's talk about the rest though. The Su-57 Felon. I realize these last three are not in order, so we're just going to do them in order here that are on the list. Um, let's do that. The Felon gets DIRCM. Incoming heat-seeking missiles approaching from behind or your sides are countered by directional infrared countermeasures. You take reduced damage by up to 50%. This is fantastic. This is just passive. This is the true sense of passive, where all like if you take a bunch of infrared missiles from behind, they're all reduced by that amount. And considering this is a stealth plane, infrared missiles are what you got to worry about. It won't help you in head-on fights, but if you are like disengaging from targets or evading targets and they're tagging you with missiles and infrared missiles and such, this helps enormously. This will drastically increase. Like, consider if you've got a rank 5 and someone's trying to hunt you down with infrared missiles, you now have double your normal health, like your effective health. Like, it takes twice the missiles to kill you that it used to. This is incredibly, incredibly useful. Yeah, let's put this must-have for the plane. This is borderline game altering. Like, yeah, we're gonna put it like there. Sorry, we're gonna put it here, right next to the JF-17. Yeah, it's incredible. Next, we have the J-20, Mighty Dragon. Target painting. While holding a missile lock on an enemy, your allies gain up to 25% increased missile lock range and a up to 75% missile lock time reduction against your lock target. Holy cow. Is this incredible? This is the reason why game altering exists as a category. 75% increased missile lock speed is incredible. Like, you can, as well as missile lock range as well. Like, there's so many engagements where like two medium range planes are coming at each other and they both start locking at around the same time. But if one has a missile lock distance of like an extra kilometer, they get to start their lock faster and they will start basically winning that engagement. You get to basically give that advantage to your whole team with a J-20 with 360-degree look and shoot from high altitude by just locking a target that's going to be engaging your team. And all it takes is locking a target, which is, and you're usually going to be like running improved targeting on it at level 20. But even if you're not, it only takes like less than 2 seconds to lock a target. You just stay locked on. It bequeaths a massive, massive tactical advantage to your team to like onto a target that you're looking down on. It allows you to act as a force multiplier for your team even more than the J-20 already does, because the J-20 already is great at suppressing enemies and keeping them inside and stuff like that, whatever. And even like, but like a lot of times you could ignore a J-20 having a lock on you as long as you were close enough to terrain or evasion or whatever, that you could basically get terrain between you and it before its missiles could get to you, because the missiles have to take a while to get around to like firing in the direction where getting over to you, and then like they're actually not all that fast, so like they're slower than standard interceptor missiles. So you could still be safe even if the J-20 had line of sight on you, as long as you could still get terrain between you and it if it decided to rain missiles down on you. Now you can't. Now, if you so much as have line of sight between you and the J20, it is providing a benefit to its team. You are being um, made easier to kill by the rest of that team. Like you're at a disadvantage against all of their teammates simply by having line of sight and a missile lock. Um, you can also, if you were to run two J20s on the same target, like or on the same team, you can combine these traits, the target painting. So what you can do is have a J20 target an enemy, lock them on, lock onto them, and get that target painting. That gives 25% increased missile lock range to another J20 that stays at, like, say 15 kilometers. It then locks onto that target. If the first J20 stops locking onto the painted target, the second one can still stay locked on and still paint it from 15 kilometers away. Like, you can take turns firing on a target with two J20s, where, like, the first one fires, like, first one locks, second one fires, and then the second one relocks, the first one fires, and you're basically using each other's 75% lock time reduction. And as long as you got the cadence right, you can just rain down 12 missiles onto a target in extremely short succession. There's a lot of potential for this. This is game altering. I could go on, but, like, this is going to change how the J20 is used and how games are played. Last, but definitely not least, the F-22 Raptor with IR masking. While you are not using afterburners, enemy heat-seeking infrared missiles have up to 35% reduced lock range against you. This is great. This means that the standard, like, 2.8 kilometer range against you is reduced down to 1.8 kilometers. So at 35%. So you're safe, a lot safer from infrared missiles. You're able to see that you're resisting those locks. This also helps counter the range on the rafale on you as well. So it really helps the F-22 be the stealth menace that it's supposed to be. The lower levels on this are not as effective. They'll help occasionally, but you're going to want at least rank 3 or 4 before it starts properly becoming useful where you can lean into using it. So this is one where you want to max out. I'll also mention the J20, again, like, even at rank, like, 2, it's as strong as giving everyone else improved targeting. Like, it is so incredibly useful. So, yeah, max out the J20s, absolutely. Max out the F-22s if you're going to use it. It is must have for this plane because it is so incredibly useful. If it was stronger than this, like if it was like 50% or more, it would be game altering because you would be almost like immune to infrareds as long as you didn't hit your afterburners. And you don't have to hit your afterburners watching this. So, with where it is, I actually think it's a little bit weaker than the Su-57s. Probably put it there. Probably put it right there for that. But let's wrap this up. This once again is the preview tier list for all the passives coming out for Metalstorm. Hopefully this gives you a good idea as to what to invest your silver into, how it's going to impact the game, how it's going to impact the plane, what the where your best bang for your buck is for a lot of these. This is subject to change as we get more information on how well these actually perform in most people's hands, in skilled people's hands in tournament play, this will adjust a little bit. This should give you a good starting point. But yeah, hope you guys are excited for the new content for the game. Should make this game even more deep in terms of its gameplay. I'm quite excited for it, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks so much.